Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today as we are going to address your freedom and the social experiments going on right now to try and take away your freedom. What is the consequence of that? These are big questions, and there are questions that are affecting every single American, and they will affect our future as well. We're going to address that in just 1 second. But first, we want to mention that if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, we welcome you and we thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all social media the internet overlords will allow to be able to hear your voice, to hear what you have to say about the issues that matter. Through your tweets, your chats, and your phone calls, you get to voice your opinion. Because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to free speech from anywhere in the world. Because whether your government or the internet overlords agree, we believe in your right to be able to speak. And we hope you'll share that with us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our live stream. With that said, let's look at the problem that is existing right now in America: gun control and defunding the police, or revisioning the police, or reallocating police funding. Let's look at defending the public, defending yourself, safety. These are big issues. They have long and deep consequences to the American public. And there is a social experiment that has been ongoing for quite some time now to try and change America, to say the very least, to take away your right to the Second Amendment, to take away your right to defend yourself, to make you subservient to the government who has promised that they will make you safe, just for the price of a few minor freedoms. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay. And that experiment is ongoing now. We've seen that with the defunding of police. We've seen that with many laws being proposed to strip the Second Amendment or deny you access to the Second Amendment, as well as what we're seeing right now in the latest news as we see reported in California and San Jose. In San Jose, they are now the first city in the United States to issue a law, a regulation saying that to be a firearm owner, you must have insurance. Only for the gun owners. Gun owners will be required to carry liability insurance in what is believed to be the first measure of its kind in the United States. Now, this is important because this is an experiment. It's nothing more than a social experiment. It is an idea that if we make gun owners have to pay an insurance policy for the right of being able to bear arms, something that is intrinsic and part of the bedrock of the United States, that will somehow make people safer, that this will stop crime. We also hear things like what we have heard from New York State, with appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, who has said that she will not cave to pressure, even as New York City's progressive mayor Eric Adams has said that he wants to see bail reform tweaked just a little bit, to change it, to give any of the judges the opportunity to be able to protect the public. This is what Eric Adams is saying in a speech on gun violence this Monday. He said, quote, "We must allow judges to take dangerousness into account when setting bail or deciding to jail someone pending trial." On Tuesday, Chief Administrative Judge Lawrence Marks said during a budget hearing in Albany that, quote, "Many judges would like more discretion in making determinations about bail and release of people accused of crimes." We're seeing that our judicial system is reacting to what we have seen throughout this nation. Defunding the police, or reallocating police funding, or revisioning police, however that term is used, has come and come to the same result every single time. In fact, if we go to the ACLU, you'll see that this was a June 11, 2020 op-ed. And in there they state, the idea of defunding or divestment is new to some folks in reference to the police. But the basic premise is simple. We must cut the astronomical amount of money that our government spends on law enforcement and give that money to more helpful services like job training, counseling, violence prevention programs. Each year, state and local governments spend upwards of $100 billion on law enforcement, and that's excluding billions more in federal grants and resources. That sounds wonderful. It sounds like a beautiful way to change things. We can fix this. All we have to do is take money from the police and we use it in the community, give it to community organizers, and we'll be peaceful. Crime will stop. Criminals will stop. Except that isn't true. Over and over again, that's not true. Bail reform will help to lower crime. It will help to make peace. It will help to make you safer. Except that's not true. See, July 6, 2021, what did we see? In Manhattan, after 3,500 individuals were arrested for rioting and crimes throughout 2020 and in 2021, 93 convictions were actually put in place. Thousands of individuals, thousands, just had their crimes wiped out. They got to walk away. There was no consequence to the crimes they committed. And we have seen documented over and over again in New York State and in many states the bail reforms that have been put forth to release criminals immediately have had negative consequences, not just in the repeat crimes that we have seen, but to many of the victims of crimes, where these criminals in domestic abuse cases, in rape cases, in burglaries, where these criminals have gone and immediately returned to their victims to victimize them even more. This is not new, and this isn't something unusual. This is a direct consequence of these laws. And the response from our elected officials across the country have been either, as in California, to decide that they need to punish law-abiding citizens, or in the case, say in New York State, they want to take away your right to be able to defend yourself, that you cannot go outside your home. We've already seen from the Ninth Circuit Court that they have decided you have no right to defend yourself outside your home. We've already covered that story. And in New York State, we see that there are elected officials who are trying to prevent people from being able to defend themselves, to stopping women and the poor from being able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Sounds extreme. Well, no. Assembly Bill A7771. Currently in the bill, it was entered on January 5th of 2022. It is in consideration in the New York State Assembly right now. There are 4 sponsors with additionally another 5 co-sponsors on the bill. And you can look this up, and the links to everything we're speaking about will be in the description. Now, this establishes additional requirements for all firearms. That's shotguns and rifles and handguns, all, including a 5-hour gun safety course exam, passing a shooting range test with 90% accuracy, providing notarized proof of a past drug test and mental health evaluation, providing proof of purchase of firearm and ammunition safe storage depositories, and passing a criminal background check. This is meant to stop you from owning a firearm. This series of criteria are kind of like the Jim Crow laws that we saw in the South, where it was always a new bar being placed higher and higher, requirements that were so far outside of the norm and the ability of the average citizen to be able to accomplish that they wouldn't even try. It's meant as a deterrent and a way to defeat the Second Amendment. and it's a way to defeat individuals. Now, this bill, A7771, is exactly the same thing that we see that was offered from Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. And in March 1st of 2021, she put out H.R. 127, a devastating bill that in part also says that to be able to have a license for a firearm in the United States, you must undergo a psychological evaluation, that you must successfully complete a training course, and you must demonstrate that the issuance of the license and the individual will have an effect on the insurance policy. You have to be insured. So essentially, both in California and in New York State, they are pulling from Representative Sheila Jackson Lee's H.R. 127, a bill that is unconstitutional at every aspect, and it is meant to do one thing: to deny the poor and deny women and deny minorities the ability to be able to have a firearm. Women like this woman, and as we had spoken about on January 29th of 2021. This young woman, Savannah Lindquist, a rape survivor, I don't see how this is making them safer. Let me ask you again, getting this license, and this is just a license for the firearm. We haven't even addressed the license for the firearm for ammunition, which is a separate process. Again, adding to the cost to make it financially out of the realm of the average American citizen so that they are denied the ability to have a firearm. And this gives the Democrats the ability to say, I didn't deny you your Second Amendment rights. It's still on the books. You just can't afford it. You can't afford to go through the loopholes and jump through all of our paperwork to be able to get this done. That's not my fault. You just need to make more money. By the way, we're raising your taxes so you can't have more money. Then that's the truth at the end of the day. And each and every one of these derivations of H.R. 127, a bill so abysmal, so unconstitutional, no one supported it. It went nowhere. It died in Congress. Not that Democrats and Representative Sheila Jackson Lee stopped. Instead, they broke it apart and they are sending it out to different states and to different cities to run this social experiment, to prove they believe that it's going to work this time. This time, you're going to be okay. Just like with bail reform, just like with defunding the police, just like they want to and have promised to take away your right to own a firearm. We've heard this said directly, and as we have covered, by Joe Biden on CNN in a national town hall, as he said he wants to remove the ability of American citizens to own 9mm handguns and any firearm that's capable of firing 20 rounds, which is every firearm that exists in the modern world. That's every single firearm. And we've heard individuals like Beto O'Rourke, the fake Hispanic Robert O'Rourke, who is running for governor of Texas, who has promised to take away AK-47s and AR-15s and the American citizens' right to be able to defend themselves, to eliminate the Second Amendment. We've heard that from Kamala Harris, as she promised that within the first 100 days, if she were to be elected as president, that she would instill, through executive order, the elimination of the Second Amendment and your rights and freedoms. And in all of these cases, over and over again, we have to ask a simple question. We understand the promise that is being made. You're going to be safe. ACLU. You're going to be safe. And if you just give up your freedoms, you give up your rights for this promise of safety, this promise of diversity, you're going to be safer. Let me ask you, in California historically, 2010 to 2020, is more violent and has more violent crime than the average for the United States. You don't believe me? This comes from the FBI itself. The fact is that we are seeing that California is far more violent. And this is from, again, this is California according to the FBI. So the problem doesn't seem to be limited to firearms, although we're promised it's because of firearms. But if we look at the crime statistics for San Jose, if we're looking at coming from the San Jose Police Department and looking at their reporting of crimes, while homicides are down 64%, which is great because although they're comparing it to 2020, one of the most violent years on record in the nation, we're seeing that rape, robbery, and aggravated assaults are all up. Let me ask you a simple question when we look at that. If gun owners in California are forced to have an insurance policy, which some of them cannot afford, is that going to change rape, robbery, or aggravated assault? Is that going to stop burglary and larceny and theft? Does that have any impact whatsoever? How many criminals do you know that pay for insurance? When you look at someone who's done a carjacking, are they paying insurance on the car? Of course not. They don't care. If someone steals your car, they don't care if you have insurance on it or not. They're not getting an insurance plan themselves. That has nothing to do with the underlying crime that is being committed. Whether or not you have the insurance is meaningless. And that doesn't stop having an insurance plan. That doesn't stop someone like the crazed individuals we saw in Texas who went down and committed an act of terrorism. Any of the mass shootings or the school shootings. When we saw that the Florida school shooting, the 1-year investigation and review and analysis, they never said, oh, and we need to add insurance programs for gun owners. They said they needed to have armed individuals in the schools, multiple, depending on the size of the school. That is a fact. These aren't things that are going to make you safer. And let's really understand the nature of this. Again, looking at the crime mapping from San Jose, from their police, when we look at this, we see that they have 16 events of crimes with a weapon. That includes all weapons. That's knives, that's hammers, baseball bats, and of course, yes, firearms too. And in looking at this total number, about 2 of the crimes that happen per week do in fact have a firearm. Of 791 items a week. This is from San Jose itself, 791 records. We're seeing that there were 102 assaults. There were 86 burglaries. There were motor vehicle theft, 147 carjackings. There's 121 larceny attacks. There were 91 vehicle break-ins and thefts. So let me ask you a question. How is any of that going to be stopped? Because the gun owners in San Jose who want to protect themselves from these crimes, from all of these crimes, how is it that they have insurance? Is that going to stop a carjacking, a burglary, a theft? Is that doing anything to stop any of those things? Yet this is the plan. To reduce gun violence is to increase an insurance, to make it harder for people to own guns. That's the end result. They don't want you to have the firearm. Not that they want to stop gun violence. They want to stop gun ownership of legally law-abiding citizens. When you think about it, there's 165 million individuals, Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and progressives, that own firearms. In the last 2 years, since 2020, somewhere in the range of 7 to 12 million individuals became first-time gun owners because they're afraid of the violence that has increased throughout our nation. And none of those things have been prevented. None of that crime has been prevented by defunding the police, bail reform, or restricting individuals from being able to have a firearm. When you look at New York State, New York State's interesting. And we've been covering this many times. There is a gun-involved violence elimination initiative. This is a report. They provide a report from 17 of the largest cities in New York State. And they consistently look at what is going on with gun violence. New York State in 2013 passed the New York SAFE Act. In 2018, we had the passage of the red flag laws. 2019. They passed the red flag laws. Both of these initiatives were to make you safe, to stop gun violence, to end gun crime. Now, if you go to this page, which is from New York State, January 26, 2022, you'll see that their annual report hasn't been updated since 2019, which is kind of upsetting. This is 2022. Isn't there a report being done every year? Isn't there a report that should be available since 2019, 3 years ago? Shouldn't we have 2020 and 2021? Well, in fact, we do. The fact is that we do have the shooting incidents, shooting victims, and individuals killed in 2021. This report actually was made available on January 13th and includes all information up to December 31st of 2021. It's not made available to the public on New York State's site itself. No, that you can only see up until 2019. But the fact is, the report does exist from January 13th, showing us exactly what happened. And what we have seen is that with red flag laws, with gun control, with all of the restrictions on the Second Amendment and the punishment of law-abiding citizens, criminals don't care. And criminals have not been stopped at all. As we can see, looking at this very clearly, in 2020, which is one of the most violent years and decades in the United States, with massive increases of over 30% more gun violence and death in the United States by criminals, 2021 had an increase even beyond that. And the 5-year average, which includes the red flag laws and the New York SAFE Act and restrictions against law-abiding citizens, shows that the 5-year average of shooting incidents involving injury increased in 2021. That there was a 45% increase over the average. If we see the number of shooting victims, persons hit, increased in 2021 over the 5-year average, none of the things that have been promised to the American people have worked. These initiatives aren't trying to stop criminals. That's our biggest problem with H.R. 127. When we spoke about it then, it would not stop a single person. When we look at these bills, like in this New York State Assembly, Bill A7771, in making all these additional requirements for shotguns and rifles and handguns, having a 5-hour safety course, which we agree, that's a wonderful thing to have. But forcing people to pass, to have 90% accuracy, that doesn't make you safer. That doesn't stop a criminal. They're not required to have that same accuracy. Having a drug test and mental health evaluation, that doesn't help. Because mental health doesn't mean that you're going to be a terrorist, that you're going to be a school shooter, that you're going to be a mass shooter. There are many people who have temporary issues like depression because they've been locked in their homes for over a year, because they haven't been able to go outside without a mask on, because they have been isolated from their friends and families, people who have suffered from depression because of that. That doesn't mean that they're going to be a danger and shoot up our schools. They're not the ones who are doing it. That doesn't prevent criminals from going out and getting a gun and still harming other individuals. providing proof of purchase of a firearm and ammunition safe storage depositories. Name the criminal who's concerned about safe storage. Who's going to check on that? How is the police or any of the agencies going to find out where the Crips are storing their firearms, the Bloods are putting their guns? And are they going to take away their guns because, oh, look, you don't have safe storage? Do you really think that's going to happen? And to be able to do that, that means that the police, yes, they need to have proof of the purchase and the proof of use. That means a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights coming down the road. And in California, let me ask you the same thing. How does this stop a criminal? In a state that is known for being more violent and having more issues of violence that have nothing to do with a firearm. In San Jose, you are not going to be prevented, no woman will be prevented from being raped because she has insurance on, or she was denied insurance on a firearm. That's not going to make her safer. There's no one who's going to be, no robbery that will be stopped because someone has insurance on a firearm. There is no burglary, larceny, vehicle theft that will be prevented because a law-abiding citizen now is required to have the insurance in San Jose or anywhere else in the nation for that matter. These aren't bills, these aren't laws that are meant to protect you. They're meant to leave you defenseless. They're meant to leave you subservient. Because if you cannot defend yourself, if they have denied you the ability to access their right to the Second Amendment, much like the Jim Crow laws, to deny you the ability to exercise your rights, then you have nowhere else to turn to except the government, the few individuals that do control the firearms. And when they have that control, what will they do with it? Historically, around the world, every dictator, every authoritarian, the very first act that they take is to get rid of any of the firearms, especially from their own supporters, to make sure that there is no one to question their rule. In Venezuela, when they took away the firearms, that was followed by over 5,000 Venezuelans being killed by the Venezuelan government. This is a problem. This is a social experiment that is being conducted where we know what the result will be, and its purpose is political and meant to punish people who exercise their rights because someone else has a political advantage when you are defenseless. You should stand up to that. The people of San Jose and California and in New York State should reject these derivations of H.R. 127. It was a bad bill then, it is a bad bill now. They should reject this exclusion of bail reform considering the danger that the public will be facing. We should stop penalizing people for lawfully exercising their rights. 165 million gun owners in the United States, basically one out of every other person, one out of two people own a firearm in the United States. And 99.9995% of all Americans with a firearm are law-abiding and not a problem. If we're going to fix the problem of gun violence, we must start at the root of the problem, which is criminality. What is making a person a criminal? What is making a person decide, in the case of mass shootings, that their only answer is to harm innocent individuals? If we can answer those root problems, gun violence goes down, crime goes down. Having police, not removing the police, not defunding the police or revisioning the police, that doesn't make crime go away. We have seen that in Portland, Seattle, New York, Austin, Boulder, Colorado. You look around the nation, Minneapolis, we have seen this consistently. It's not the answer. It is meant to make you feel good that someone is doing something. What is happening in California right now is they are doing something, not doing the right thing, not doing anything that is effective, They're just doing something. And that something hurts more people than it helps. Perhaps you think we're wrong. Perhaps you think we've misunderstood, that the evidence that we are showing you, the information we are showing you is somehow inaccurate. If that is the case, please tell us why. If we have misunderstood something, if we've gotten something wrong, please do let us know why. If you think that revisioning the police and forcing law-abiding citizens to have insurance and thus limiting the number of Americans who can exercise their rights, if you think that is a good thing, please let us know why. And most of all, we hope that you'll join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live stream, where this and many other issues affecting not only the United States but the world will be discussed. And we hope you'll be there to discuss it with us. Thank you.